Well, hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us at our fourth virtual artist chit chat. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Allison, and I am a member of Mad Horse Theater Company, and I will be your Zoom MC for the evening. But before we jump into tonight's events, I just have a few reminders. First, Mad Horse Theater Company is located in South Portland, which is Indigenous land stolen from the tribes of the Wabanaki Confederacy. We encourage you to visit native-land.ca for a comprehensive map of Indigenous lands all around the world, and the abbeymuseum.org, Abbey is ABBE, to learn more about Indigenous tribes in Maine. If this is your first time joining us, I want you to know that you can experience our previous panels from September, October, and November on our website under virtual events and on our YouTube channel, and it'll help fill the void until we are all back together in 2021. And as a quick little shameless plug, some familiar faces from those previous events will be joining us later this month, but there will be more information about that later in the evening. Our model for the night is inspired by Pecha Kucha style storytelling. So each artist will have approximately 7 minutes to talk with all of you. We are going to move from artist to artist, and then at the end, we'll open up everything to you, our audience. If you would like to submit any questions to them throughout the evening, we're going to send you to the Q&A function, which is at the very bottom of your Zoom screen, and that will help us facilitate the conversation. We also want to acknowledge that the chat function is super fun and super helpful, but can also be a little bit distracting. So we're going to ask to limit any usage of that and kind of keep everything kind of limited to the Q&A, but particularly keeping questions in the Q&A function so that way they don't get lost in the chat. We can make sure that we get to everything. And we do want you to know that we love all of your passion and enthusiasm. We are going to be recording the following portion of the evening, and we plan on making the recording available to more audiences after this weekend. We will also be following up with all of you with the best ways to follow, contact, and support all of these amazing friends that you are about to meet. And if you can, please help support these folks. We'll be sharing the best ways to do that throughout the evening, and again, in the follow-up materials via email and on our social medias. We're going to make sure that you have all of the direct links to do that because it is so important to be supporting artists. But now, that is plenty of time spent with me. I'm going to turn this over evening to our panel of artists. So let us give a virtual round of applause for our first presenter of the evening. Emily Dixon is first and foremost a theater educator. I'm super lucky to have her on the theater team at the Children's Museum and Theater of Maine, and I'm so excited that she's joining us here tonight. Emily is also a theater artist, writer, singer, musician, snowboarder, fan of cats, and is slightly obsessed with female superheroes. Emily, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Allison. There's a moment in any performance when the anticipation is almost unbearable. The house lights fade and the silence of the audience is louder than their chatter. That breath of quiet darkness is filled with endless potential, and it's my favorite moment of a show. The first time I lived in Portland, back in 2010, my goal was to be a professional stage manager. And I was good, like really good, and I lived for it. I loved the rehearsal process. I loved organizing blocking notes. I loved rehearsal reports. I loved rehearsal reports. I loved the late nights and the long hours, and I had planned to do it for the rest of my life. While I was working toward that goal, I worked as a summer camp counselor in Keene, New Hampshire. I cannot properly explain how much I love this camp. I almost did my entire presentation tonight about this camp. I want every kid everywhere to experience the magic of this camp. One day, the assistant director called me out of the blue and said, "My husband's school needs a technical director. I'm giving him your name. Answer the phone when he calls." And I was like, sure, why not? What better way to get experience and beef up my resume? So my wife and I moved to Keene, and I started teaching high school technical theater. Overnight, my entire career revolved around educational theater. And as it turns out, as good as I was as a stage manager, I was a better teacher, and I loved it. Plus, all my stage management skills transferred. But in the back of my mind, I knew it was temporary. I was supposed to be a stage manager. I was going to work in professional theater. That had always been the goal. It was hard for me to let go of the dream of working full time in professional theater. It had been a vision that I had worked toward and spoken about for my entire adult life. I thought that because I was good at it and because I had once loved it, that I could force myself to love it again. But it's hard to convince yourself to do something when you know that your undeniable purpose is somewhere else. I have a new favorite moment in a show: the moment the students make it their own. The house lights go down and the audience sits in a hopeful silence, and the show is no longer mine, it's theirs. COVID has provided the longest break I have had from doing theater since I was 14 years old. This year has been eye-opening for a multitude of reasons. But most importantly, I didn't realize how much I had tied my identity into my career. People had heard of me: stage manager extraordinaire, passionate theater teacher. I was actually recognized on the street for playing Gerald in Elephant and Piggy at the museum, which was like the coolest thing to ever happen in my entire life and will literally never happen again. But theater was my identity. Theater was my life. And then the world paused. At some point during the 300 years that was March, I found an old hard drive. And among the very embarrassing photos from college, I found the first draft of a book I had written when I was a senior in high school. When I was a kid, I wrote all day, every day. I would stay up late at night writing in notebooks. It was my escape. It was a place where I could work through my parents' divorce. It was a place where I wrote my first lesbian character before I realized that I was writing about myself. And so it should be no surprise that to deal with the never-ending shit show that has been 2020, I dove back into writing. Writing is giving me something to focus on. I wake up every morning excited to find out what my characters will do. I never know ahead of time. I'm telling their story, not making it up. I didn't know I was writing a series until a character from my first book popped up in the second book, like, hey, what's going on over here? And then this entire universe erupted, and it allows for the characters to stay alive and continue telling their story. I get to see where they wind up after their narrative ends, and it's the coolest thing. Suddenly I have 2 finished books, 1 in progress, and 3 more outlined. They're just Google Docs right now, but people are reading them. And what's crazier is people are liking them. One person read both books in a weekend and then offered to feature me in her newsletter when I publish. When I publish. That sounds ridiculous. Almost as ridiculous as the first time a kid called me Miss Dixon. There's this moment in every show, just before you share yourself, when you're at your most vulnerable. Your heart is in your throat and you're not sure if your voice is going to work, but you go on anyway. Because we're artists. We will always find a way to go on.
Emily, thank you. First, you're 100% going to be recognized again. So I believe in that. And thank you so much. Like, your passion for everything is just so insanely infectious. And Portland is just so lucky to have you here. I'm really glad that you and Katie are back. Shifting over, our second artist of the evening is Brooks Ewald. Brooks has been acting and voice acting for approximately 15 years. One of his most notable achievements is when he won an acting award at the Maine State Drama Festival for his role as Alfieri. Fun facts for everybody: Brooks and I have known each other for almost 10 years. So I'm going to kind of embarrass him right now. We're like, I knew him when he was like a wee baby, and now he is a grown up. And Brooks, I'm so happy that you're joining us here tonight. So I'm going to hand it over to you, my friend.
Hi, hello, Allison. Hi, everyone. Hi, friends. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It really is an honor to be here with all these other amazing artists that are here. Right off the bat, Emily, that was an amazing story, and I'm so happy that you shared that with us. And tonight, I kind of want to talk about something similar that Emily talked about. I want to talk about dreams. And as Allison mentioned, I've been doing theater for a really long time. I approximate it at 15 years. I might be a little less, maybe that. But I've been doing it for a really long time. And I guess my purpose of talking about dreams is that it was a dream of mine. One day, I never really knew what I wanted to do. I knew I came from a family that was very athletic, very sportsy, but it really wasn't my thing. And then, I did my first play with the children's theater forever ago, and I sort of, learned this whole new side of life where I can be creative and show who I am and explore all these different ways of different cultures and different lives. And I think that that's incredible. And one thing I really want to just say is that if you've never seen a children's theater show with the Children's Museum and Theater made, like, you have to go see one. Like, it's magical, and the work that the kids put on there is just fantastic. um so theater's always been really important in my life since that first encounter on stage all those years ago. And I've always been trying to figure out different ways to pursue theater in my life. And for a very long time, it was just doing stage acting and doing what I could, doing backstage, doing on stage, doing lights, doing sound, doing build crew. And I really just sort of developed an affection for just the whole aspect, the family aspect, the people that are around you. And I remember one day, it was forever ago. I was really young, and I was asked to do an audio recording for an exhibit at the Children's Museum. And I said, sure, why not? This sounds fun. I was really young. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I went to the booth to record it, and it was a lot of fun. And I realized, this is a whole nother aspect of performing that I've never even thought of. And that's sort of something that sat in my head for a while. And then once I got into high school, I started thinking about how, voiceovers, how cartoons are made, how animation is made, how these actors who don't have the ability to use their bodies to present what they're trying to the story they're trying to tell to the audience. And that just amazed me. So I decided that, hey, I want to try something like this. I want to see what it's like. And I took a few classes, I took a few master classes, and I realized this is a lot of fun. And my dream that I always had sort of shifted. I knew I wanted to be an actor, but I wanted to be an actor, and on top of that, I wanted to be a voice actor. So I did that thing that a lot of 20-year-olds do when they graduate high school is, I'm going to go throw everything up in the air. I'm going to go to New York and try to do something. And that's what I did in the fall of 2019. I just threw up everything that I had, and I said, I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to see if I can get this to work. So I went to school in New York, and my main goal was to just try to see if I could do something, see if I could become something. Um, and I remember one day, a couple weeks into my stay there, I got a call from a studio, a do art studio in New York City, which they dubbed the anime for Pokemon. And that was huge for me because I grew up watching Pokemon, and I was like amazing. Of course I'm going to go in and see what this is like. Of course I'm going to go see what I can do. And I remember going in there and doing some stuff and doing auditions and whatnot. And it was just, I felt like sitting in that booth, that every experience I'd ever had performing was just there with me, and that I was giving it my all. And that itself was just an incredible feat for me. And then obviously COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I came back to Maine. And when I came back to Maine, I realized how amazing of a state that we live in, how beautiful it is, how the beautiful the land is that we have here, the sun, everything about it, the people. And it really made me realize just how lucky we are to live here. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to take this dream that I had, and I'm going to move it to something completely different. Instead of trying to become this this actor, this voice actor, and going off and living in New York and Texas and California, wherever you might live, to make something of yourself, I decided I want to be an actor, but I want to stay where I always was. I want to stay in Maine. I love this place. It's the place that made me me, and I want to make something here. And I've been writing this script, this show that my friends and I want to animate at some point, and we just finished writing the first season. And it's and to me, it's just an incredible feat. And I think my main purpose of this, my whole speech tonight, is just that dreams are super powerful. And I know that in the time that we live in right now, everything is uncertain. Um, Everyone's a little stressed out. We don't know what's going on. We don't know, what's going to happen tomorrow. What are when are we going to be able to do our next performance? When are we going to be able to do that? And I guess the thing is as hard as it is to try to like look at the positivity of everything, is to just like set your dream, because I truly believe that if you work towards your dream, dreams will come true. And that's something that's really important to me. And I really want to like pass that on to other people. Like, just support your dreams, go out for your dreams. And like, everyone has something that makes them happy. Everyone has something that makes them them. And for me, that's performing, that's theater. I like to bring people joy. I like to tell stories. And I think it's such a powerful way to bring the world together through telling stories. And I think that that is a way that we can just make peace, I think, is through telling stories and talking to each other. And that was really what I wanted to talk about. And I thank you all for having me on tonight, because it really means a lot. And I appreciate you all.
Oh gosh, Brooks, thank you so much. That was really beautiful. I love what you just said about showing peace through spreading stories. It just really resonated. It's been so exciting watching this passion of yours grow. And I'm so delighted that you are here with us too and you're sharing everything. So thank you so much. For all of our other folks who are joining us tonight, you can follow along with all of Brooks's creative endeavors by visiting his website. It is brooksewaldva.com. And don't worry, we will make sure it's all included in the follow-up materials to all of you. And just a reminder, if any thoughts or questions do come up while anyone's talking, you can just send them to us through the Q&A function at any time, and we'll make sure to get to everything at the end. But for now, we're going to shift over to our next artist, who was a face pretty familiar in the Portland scene and someone who wisely escaped yesterday's storm by moving down to North Carolina. Ella Mock, pronouns they, them, is an actor, intimacy choreographer, and consent educator currently based in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. They have studied with Theater of the Oppressed NYC, theatrical intimacy education in Goddard College in their socially engaged arts and sexuality studies programs. Ella is interested in cultivating braver, safer spaces for artists to play dangerously. Ella, thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing all of this wisdom.
Hey y'all, just to let y'all know, I'm going to be talking about sex work, and towards the end, I'm going to mention trafficking and sexual assault. I'm an educator, so I'm used to folks just doing whatever they want to do while I'm talking on Zoom, so feel free to do whatever it is you need to do. As Allison said, I'm an actor, sex educator, consent educator, and intimacy choreographer. The intimacy choreography part is actually pretty new. In April, I was supposed to attend my first in-person, like real official intimacy choreography training in New York. Obviously, that did not happen. But actually, I feel very lucky that since starting to study intimacy choreography, it has all been online. And so has been by nature attuned to making work online. So I didn't have to change shit, and I'm excited about that. I have this foundation of acting and directing and devising theater and general consent education, thanks to spending the last few years with the incredible folks at Speak About It. And everything I've learned since April has been just gluing these things together. And I've had a lot of people ask me, but do we actually need a choreographer for a Zoom play? And like, A, I don't have a clue until I read the play, and B, maybe not. But most of the work I've been doing has been providing resources and structure for actors and directors entering this bonkers online theater world. Like, I'm fine with these sexually explicit lines, but my apartment has thin walls, or there's nowhere in my home I can be without my parents hearing me read or someone else read these stage directions about some big sex thing happening, or I feel safe doing this scene of assault or violence, but like I'm in my room and I'm having a hard time just hanging out in the same space afterwards. Desk de-rolling, as I call it, has been my specialty, this act of resetting ourselves as well as our space. It's super vital work for when we're doing energized or activating work in the places where we want to be most at rest at other times. But when it comes to actually depicting scenes of intimacy and violence online, I also have a lot of really cool ideas, in my humble opinion. Over the summer, I worked with Shakespeare Happy Hours. We read all of Shakespeare's plays, 3 plays a week. For each kiss or intimate moment, we brainstormed some intimate language that made sense within a gestural vocabulary really specific to that world. So like, while Antony and Cleopatra may have grasped their chins like this, and Troilus and Cressida put their fists to their hearts like a vow, Romeo and Juliet played more with distance and this wariness, and then just were still and looked straight into the camera during that pivotal first kiss. And it was incredibly effective and really, really sweet and lovely. I've also choreographed this one show, there was this weird violent orgy that happened at the end. And we were like, there's no way to make this look real. So we brought up another camera that was focused on a watermelon, which was sort of a pivotal prop earlier in the play, and just watched it being cut and hacked apart to depict this particular scene. One of my favorite moments that I've worked on was the scene of a transmasculine person who is packing for the first time, or using a prosthetic penis or a piece of material to represent a penis to create weight and shape in their groin. It didn't have to be shown at all. We just saw them moving, kind of figuring it out, and then experiencing that euphoria just from the shoulders up. That's all we had to see. Myself, the director, and the actor were all non-binary artists, and together we devised these little gestural dances with the prompt gender euphoria, as in the opposite of dysphoria. As a genderqueer person who is used to being the only one of my identity in a room, that was one of the most rewarding collaborations I have ever experienced. And I think that's great that we have these video editing and streaming technologies that allow us to put people like in the same room or look like we're in the same room and create the illusion of actual touch. However, I think that we have a gift right now in our opportunity to explore the countless worlds of pleasure, intimacy, and violence that are possible without touch. We are incredibly reliant on touch in the theater. And when in the real world, there is so much pleasure and intimacy and violence that happens without touch. One of the most effective and affective scenes I've ever seen was 2 people just sitting apart from each other, breathing together, still, in perfect sync, rising and falling and changing tempo, changing depth, indicating with their breath different power shifts. Freeing ourselves from touch not only serves us aesthetically, but serves us as human beings seeking intimacy in a contactless world, and helps us recognize violence before it has anything to do with touch. I really like the phrase that Adrienne Marie Brown coined, the term pleasure activist, which they describe as the politics of healing and happiness. I see my role as making the process of building depictions of intimacy and violence more pleasurable, as in more healing and enjoyable. We as actors don't need to be broken down and hurting to make good art, especially if that art is about being broken down and hurting. In fact, hot take, I think that is exactly how you make shit art. That's not to say work can't get uncomfortable. I think we should all get uncomfortable. That is how we grow, but we should never feel unsafe and fuck anyone else who tells you otherwise. Not really. Have compassion for them, whatever, but please recognize that someone else is profiting off our willingness as actors to exhaust and traumatize ourselves, and it probably ain't us. Speaking of profit, I want to switch gears for this last little bit. Have y'all heard about Sesta Fosta? There are these 2 bills from 2018 intended to curb sex trafficking, but they have, in fact, had very little impact on trafficking and have instead disenfranchised and deplatformed countless sex workers doing consensual labor. Right now, Instagram and other platforms are rolling out new restrictions about permissible content, and companies like Stripe and PayPal are barring sex workers and sex educators from receiving payment for their work. The fields of intimacy choreography and coordination have learned so much of what we know from sex workers, and we owe them our alliance. Tips for creating safe barriers, effective nude undergarments, and a lot of our foundational knowledge of performing with consent and making performed intimacy look good. Not to mention the countless points of popular culture and arts that were originally imagined and cultivated by sex workers. Especially right now, when making ends meet is such a fucking challenge, the shadow banning, deletion of content, and in some cases, complete removal of accounts that directly provide sex workers with their livelihood, that is direct violence. Already, Instagram's umbrella policies have proven vague enough to take down people who run sexual assault support services, people who sell sex toys and gender-affirming prosthetics, and people who just run like sex-positive peer support groups. Depictions of pleasure, happiness, and health are criminalized, while these rules take little to no effect on people actually doing harm and being harmed. We should care whether or not it affects us, let me make that clear, but it will affect us. As our art lives and thrives more and more online, the more these guidelines will restrict the work we can create in broadcast. Theater already relies so heavily on traumatic narratives to make the audience feel something or change their minds. If we have our ability to present and process pleasure and joy impacted, that's so many stories we cannot tell. And it's not just explicit sex, it's not just nudity, it's any mention of pleasure or arousal that's being taken down. And aren't stories of pleasure and joy the ones we need the most right now? Thank you.
Ella, thank you so much. That's just so much valuable information. I'm so grateful that you're here tonight to share and have this conversation with us. Everybody, you can support Ella via donation. They have a website. It's ko-fi.com/Ella Mock. That's ko-fi.com/Ella Mock. Support artists. This work really supports all of their education work that they are doing across the board with all these things that they just mentioned. So please support artists. And again, we'll make sure that that link is directly shared with you in all of our follow-up materials. It'll also be across our social media. So share, and you can also generously help support artists by sharing means of supporting and getting more folks to find access. Ella, thank you so much again. Our fourth artist of the evening is Kieu. Thao is a freelance photographer and fine artist based in Portland. She grew up in the greater Portland area and uses both love and trauma to inspire her art. Currently, she is working on her MFA at Mecca while integrating ways to connect with the community through play and portraits. When Thao isn't working on her art, you can find her enjoying nature, cooking, or trying new foods at local restaurants. She hopes to make people feel seen, loved, and inspired when viewing and participating in her work. Thao, I'm so excited that you are here with us tonight.
Hi. I told myself not to be nervous, but now I'm like really nervous. Wow, Ella, I'm shocked. That was amazing. Among Emily and Brooke too. Bewilderment has been like the word that's been floating around at Mecca in the program, and I feel like that would be a good word to describe how I feel about your talk tonight. So I am a multifaceted person. I have my hands in a lot of different things. I am a beekeeper who loves the honey exchange, and I am a photographer, both fine artist and like portraiture, I guess, or I'm trying to. I just really love to connect with other people, and through that, I love to share stories with my photography. Lately in the studio, my practice has been focused on connecting with others in the community, and that's through storytelling. So not necessarily through portraiture, but also through having hard conversations around like mental health, or recently a project that is similar to what Ella was speaking about in terms of themes, and like gender and the fluidity of gender. But I don't know how to introduce that or show that because I didn't plan it. But during the semester, I worked on a project called If Only You Knew. I don't know why I've been forgetting the titles of them, but I've been doing so many different iterations through photography and then making installations with the materials and objects to provoke like emotion. So a lot of my work takes place through playing with friends and having hard conversations, because a lot of people share similar traumas. Yeah, I don't know. I like spaz out and I forget a lot of my thoughts, but I don't know. I love to bake a lot of cakes, and now I'm just lost, honestly. Yeah. Through installations, I love to provoke emotions, as in like causing shock through sharing these traumatic experiences. But lately I've been working with like how to be more ambiguous, and like, but through that, how do I become more didactic, and how do I grasp my viewers to stay longer. Yeah, I'm just gonna stop here, sorry.
Yeah, don't apologize. That's so great. We're really grateful that you're here with us. And that all sounds amazing. So everybody, you can actually visit Thao's website to see and explore a lot of what she was just talking about. It's just thaokieu.com. That's THAOKIEU.com. And yeah, go explore, go check it out. Her stuff is really, really beautiful. So I cannot encourage you enough. And again, I just want to draw your attention. We have 2 more friends to go, but if you do have any thoughts or questions that are popping up with all of our friends who've spoken so far, please, you can feel free to send them through the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to them afterwards. But our next artist is Portland's very own Casey Turner. Casey is an actor, voiceover artist, and Emmy-nominated producer in Portland, Maine. Yes, you heard me, Emmy-nominated. She is happiest on stage or in a sound booth, but has an equal, if odd, passion for spreadsheets and schedules. Behind the scenes, she loves it all. Select audio credits include Lock and Key, X-File Cold Cases, Girl Talk, Yes Means Yes, and Lightly. Some favorite theater credits include Venus in Fur, Stupid Fucking Bird, which was at Mad Horse, by the way, little shout out. My Name is Rachel Curry, Lear, and Eurydice. Casey has also worked on documentaries for Animal Planet, Smithsonian Channel, History Channel, and PBS. Casey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Allison. That was a really wordy bio. Sorry for that. So yeah, I've been in theater for about 20 years now, working in film for about 8, mostly doing documentary work, and have been in the audio business for about 3 years. First as an actor and then as a producer, working with our next panelist, Fred Greenhalgh. And the thing that I've discovered is that all 3 of these formats, they're all basically the same. Like, we're all creating content. And the thing that's different about all of them, or the things, because there's so many of them, are also very small. But once you strip away all those small things, like, you're essentially creating a product. This thing that you're all enjoying and consuming. And once you understand all those little differences, then you create an adaptability and a flexibility between the formats. And so what I wanted to talk about tonight is how COVID has forced that perspective shift. You know, theater artists aren't able to produce theater anymore. It's harder to produce film these days, but what has been easier, and Brooks did a great job of talking about this, is how easy it is to do audio these days. And so we've spent this past year working on that adapting. So we've done some adaptations of theater into audio. And so actually I'm gonna play a quick sample. This is from Lynn Connor's The Mother, which its world premiere was back in March, produced by the Dramatic Repertory Company, and it only ran, I don't think it had a full week. It was in its first week when it got shut down. So Lynn approached Fred and myself, Fred's company, Dagaz Media, to create the audio version of it. And so Fred did some consulting with her on some script changes and how to incorporate some sound design with our wonderful local engineer and sound designer, Carlin Daigle. And she gave me permission to play a short clip from a scene. Now this is still a work in progress. I think this is from like the second round of notes, so things are still coming together, but I just wanted you to hear a little clip of how audio, theater is becoming audio. So let me pull that up.
Good burger, Michael. Feta cheese and olives. Nice touch.
What'd you think of the burgers, Brendan? Brendan?
Cool.
And your partner in crime here?
Cool.
Men of few words.
But many texts.
Okay, it's party time. Michael, can you get the cake? It's in the trunk.
Oh, sure.
Sandy, should we wait for Dan? Was that him texting before? He's got a brief due tomorrow. He was up all last night, and now he says he's still not finished.
Aw, it's okay.
Is it?
He's under a lot of pressure.
Yep. Just like every other adult here who still managed to make it to Jack's 12th birthday party.
Sandy, you don't need to worry about our feelings. It really is okay.
It's just, I mean, how many times is it okay before it's not? What's the...
So that was a wonderful scene that in the play takes place in a park. It's a birthday party. Obviously, when they were doing it in the theater, you know, you're in a big black room with minimal set pieces. There are no background actors creating noise. But what you're able to do in audio is add in that sound design, and you're able to really flesh it out. And what's tricky when you're doing audio work is when you're in the booth, the microphone is this far away from you. And when you're on stage, you're hardly ever working that close to your scene partner. So there's this trap of falling that you fall into of, you know, becoming really weak because you're only talking this far away from somebody. And so it was a challenge to the actors, one that they handled very well, of owning that outdoor space, making it sound like they were outdoors, calling for somebody to get the cake out of the trunk. So audio presents some really fun challenges when it comes to how you create the space through your voice. And what's wonderful is that audio is one of the most subtle forms of acting. You know, in theater, you have to be so big, and in a film, you have to make it smaller, but in audio, you have to make it even smaller. So you don't have your face or the costumes or the set design or the lights to help amplify and influence the audience. It's all about what you're doing with your voice. And so you want to make sure to not, I'm realizing this is sounding like a lecture on voice acting, but I'll sum it up soon. And then one of my favorite parts about theater, like my all-time favorite theatrical moments, are the silent moments where there's no dialogue, there's no sound, it's just the actors on stage doing very simple actions. And so finding a way to translate those just nuggets, those gems into an audio format is such a fun challenge. And so what's exciting is that people are just really discovering this art form. That's really what I'm getting at, is that audio, I mean, everybody's aware of podcasts now, and yeah, it's just a really exciting art form to be a part of these days. And it's been wonderful to see people adapting, even if they're not adapting theater into audio, to see just how these performers are still creating, because that's what we do. It doesn't matter if it's normal. In fact, if it's abnormal, that makes it more fun. So I just want to commend all of these artists and their adaptability and their flexibility. That's me. Thanks, Allison.
Thank you, Casey. That was great. That was awesome. Thank you so much. It's really cool to learn more about the audio. Yeah, I feel like I've dove into podcasts more, so I'm sure others watching have felt the same. Everybody, you can follow along with all of Casey's adventures via her website, and it's caseyjoturner.com. Casey is CaseyJoturner.com. And don't worry, we were going to get all of these links in the follow-up information to you. So it's all going to be like in an email and on our social media. So if you're not writing it down or fretting, please don't fret. We're going to get it to you super fast, like right after these presentations are over. So you can go check out all of these cool things that all of these wonderful friends are doing. But finally, last and certainly not least, our final presenter of the evening is Fred Greenhalgh. Fred is best known for bringing location recording techniques from his indie film background to the production of immersive audio movies. His work on his original series, The Cleansed, led him to catching the attention of Audible and ultimately the opportunity to team up with fellow Mainer and audio legend William Dufree to develop Lock and Key as a faithful 13.5-hour location recorded audio movie. This was followed by The X-Files Cold Cases and Stolen Lives, and The Expeditionary Force Homefront with Podium, all featuring some major Hollywood talent. If you want to go check those out, there's some really great names attached. And R.C. Bray, produced under newly formed Diaz Media. His original work also includes The Dark Tome and Of Fae and Fiends, released as Stitcher Premium exclusive. And most recently, he and the team produced a middle grade thriller, Dream Breachers, for Pinna. But I will let him fill you in all of these adventures. So take it away, Fred. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, first off, since Casey Turner, you're here, I want to just share some gratitude. I'm going to share some general gratitude, but you specifically, I don't know how many people know that Casey is a juggler, but that's an important skill this year because she's been one of those people who a lot has been happening in the world and for me and audio particularly. And every time I've started dropping a ball, I throw it to Casey and she catches it and keeps it going. So gratitude to you, Casey. Gratitude to this for Mad Horse for creating this space with so many amazing artists tonight. I find this really powerful and I didn't realize how much I was craving connecting with other Mainers, talking about art. So yeah, I really consider myself a storyteller. What the passion of me as a kid was just getting completely lost in made up worlds that I created and didn't realize that I was into audio until later, and I'll mention that in a moment. So now I'm realizing, so I might often have like slides, but I don't have the slides. So I'd like you to come with me and close your eyes if you care to, and think about a fire. And we're in this space together around a campfire telling stories. And this to me is our superpower as humans. Like, it's really great to have the whole opposable thumb thing and running and bare feet and being able to see predators coming at you. But the ability to tell stories about like what animals will kill you and what plants are good to eat and which are not, and not just to do that, but to use it to connect ourselves and give ourselves a sense of place and presence and power and a sense of inclusion of who we are over time, I think is what makes us uniquely human. And so our ability and our role as storytellers is truly important and truly world changing. And I don't mean to like get too metaphysical here, but we are in a place where we need to envision other worlds that we can all inhabit, and art is a way that we can do this. And I say this because part of my year has been wrestling with like whether an artistic identity is like an egoistic thing or a selfish choice to carve out time to make art when there's so many other things and so many other responsibilities. But I have come to a greater peace with this actually is my life purpose. And honestly, a lot of what you'll see in my work, if you look at the stuff that's the Fred stuff, is about taking deep childhood traumas that I don't know how to talk about in any other way and using art as a place to air them out in a place that's safe. And so, the stuff you're talking about, Ella, thank you for doing the work that you're doing. So that's a campfire. Now picture a river, early spring in Maine, and the snow is melting, and it's a beautiful clear blue day, and the sky is clear, and there's some birds reminding us that spring is coming, and you hear the water flowing. And Casey was just talking about the sense of of an adaptation, and I think again, this was one of my. I learned a lot. I'm blessed enough where I'm about a 1.5 mile walk to a river, and this year, I don't know how to say it, but I had like a conversation and a relationship with this river, and this was everybody. Month of March, guys, 2020. What happened? For me, I lost my creative partner, best friend, audio luminary, William Dufries. Those of you who know him know how much of a loss that is. And then within the same week, my sister-in-law passed, and the world, burst into flames. And we all were there in whatever you were going through at that point. And as I spent time with that river, and I realized I've lived in Maine my whole life, and to like go to the same river and look at it and really just spend time with the spring and feel what it felt like to see that, oh, now the snow is starting to go, and now the ground is starting to thaw, and now there's the first bit of green. That is what we are, is the ability to adapt. Like there's the whole Buddhist thing that you never step into the same river twice. And I really I'd heard that wisdom, but I really experienced it this year. And to me that metaphorically, water teaches us that you can't fight it. If you fight against a heavy tide, it's going to pull you under, it's going to smash you up on the rocks, and you're going to go. But the way to survive that change is to float and to go with it. So I don't know if that worked at all, and I didn't intend to do this, but what I might be doing is telling you about my love for audio storytelling, which is the ability to use a couple gestures, a couple to call to sound, to put a picture in your imagination. And the other part that's really magical about that is I don't know what fire you saw. I don't know what river you may have just swam in. Only you know that, but we all have a river and a fire to call upon. And as an audio storyteller, that's what you get to do. Earlier this week, I had a chance to talk to a writer in New Orleans. And that's kind of where I discovered that I was an audio artist. Is I had grown up in Maine and had thought I was into fiction writing, and then I got so far down that track, and then I went to New Orleans because there's a film program down there, and thought I was into film, and I love the aspect of working with other people, but I was like, making movies is so hard, it's so big a production. And then I had come back to Maine just before Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, and I was just enmeshed with these feelings of how do I express this horrible tragedy happening to a place that I'd loved so much and I really had adopted at the time. And the first time someone had turned me on to these old time radio plays, and when I realized that you could take the sound of a distant trombone echoing with a little clip clop of horses' feet and a beer bottle rolling with a little bit of laughter, and I was there in the French Quarter and smelling the funk of the streets and the stale cigarette smokes of the bar and all of that. And no crazy props and flying in drone zoom things, and just this stagecraft of planting a sound in someone's imagination. That's when I was hooked. And so and came back to Maine. Many of you through the Mad Horse community know some of our early on location radio dramas. We dragged actors out to lighthouses. We when Moser Street was brand new, we recorded audio plays in there. We talked about Lock and Key. That was a 13-hour thing we shot over 2 weeks, like a film, with actors shoved in the trunks of cars and brought to underground catacombs and out in the beach. And I don't know, we just had so much fun creating our story world around it. And none of that was possible anymore after COVID. So I think my sort of closing note is also that sense of being with the river, of going to the flow, of figuring out. I've actually thought a lot this past few months. I've had so much on my plate. I felt like I've been a class 5 river guide. When you're on that river, you don't sit around looking at whether you got in the right boat, right? You're in the boat, you're in the rapids. Your goal is to stay in that boat, and that's where we've been. And we've learned a bunch of really fun stuff. We've learned how, I think actually for Maine, this is a really special moment, because you can, I don't mean to say it like this, but something where you might not have, the ripple effect of that show in that room stayed in our community was really important for that community. But now everything by its nature is global. And there are a lot of people, Mainers have so much talent that the world stage can see, and we can collaborate with people all over the world. And you can create pictures in people's imaginations that live on and on. So, that's Fred. I know Allison will do a shout out. I did a free course on audio storytelling that's for free on my website, finalrune.com. Thank you for having me.
Yes, Fred, thank you so much. That was beautiful. And what a beautiful way to kind of end this part of the evening. This work is so cool. And it's just such a delight to listen to all of you talk about the importance of storytelling, and especially kind of during these times. But yes, friends, please follow along with all of Fred's numerous adventures. They're all on his website. It is finalrune.com. Again, we'll share that with you. But yeah, there's so much great information and great ways to check out all of the really amazing work that he does. So for now, let us all please give another virtual round of applause for this amazing group of artists. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening.